everyone, welcome to ATN. I'm your host, Alvin Dillon, and today on the show we are talking about disability claims. Now, there's a lot to know if you find yourself in a claim situation, so to help us out, joining me today in studio is Mr. Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Good to have you back. How's it going?
Great, thank you for having me.
And I know many of our viewers recognize you. We've had you on many times to talk about various claims, what to do if you find yourself injured in a car accident, slip and fall. But today, we're going to dedicate this episode to long-term disability, because you were telling me this is a big, big issue that you're finding more and more in your office. So tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. There are different types of long-term disability claims. People may have a policy through their employer. They may have a private plan. And you find situations where it may not be accident related. There could be pain, psychological trauma, stress at work, where the person simply cannot work anymore. And then they apply for long-term disability benefits, and quite often it's denied. And the client doesn't have money, they can't pay their bills, and they end up at our doorstep asking us, can we help? And yes, of course we can help, and I'll tell you how.
So actually, when you think of long-term disability, you were just mentioning stress at work,
Yes.
And I think one of the maybe misconceptions is people don't realize that they can apply for long-term disability because they might be diagnosed with something that they're thinking, I would never get this covered. So can we talk about some of the types that people might be surprised to know is actually covered?
Sure. Well, really, there's no set box that you put all these disabilities in. The test would be whether or not they're substantially disabled from performing their own job. And after 2 years, generally that test will change. Depending on the policy, it'll change to whether or not they're totally disabled from performing any gainful occupation that they're suited to by way of education, training, or experience. Now, the type of ailments that people could have, it could be anxiety, psychological factors, there could be chronic pain. Fibromyalgia is a real biggie. We see that a lot. There may be orthopedic injuries, or a combination of it all. It could be heart disease. It could be cancer. So it's not like a car accident where you have to prove causation. This is caused by the car accident. They just have to have a disability that actually prevents them from working and allows them to meet the test of disability that's set out in the policy.
Now, you would imagine most people would be like, okay, well, as long as I have medical information saying that I have such a condition that I would be covered, but claims do get denied. So why would they be denied? What are some of the reasons?
Right. Often the insurance company will say that there's just insufficient medical evidence, despite what the doctor has said, because they're looking at functionality and they have their own internal nurses or doctors who will look into the file and maybe deny it. There may be a lack of mitigation. Now, what that means is you may be disabled, but you haven't been involved in an active program to get better, whether it be going to physiotherapy or seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and claims could be denied on that basis. They could be denied and terminated because of surveillance. Insurance companies, particularly long-term disability carriers, will do surveillance. They'll follow people to see if they're able to do the things they say they cannot do, and that could result in an adverse finding. It could be social media posts. If the person is posting that they've been on this trip and water skiing, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but doing those things when they indicate that, well, I can't lift my groceries, I can't do that, that could result in a denial as well.
It's crazy where they can get that information, but you're right, like anything out there can be essentially used by the insurance company. So if they are denied, how can you help them?
Right. Well, the first thing we give free consultations, and I ask the person to come in, bring the decision, any medical evidence they may have, and I'll request the records, but if they have some letters from their doctor, that's great. And if they have the policy booklet, because then we can look at the contractual test for disability and to whether or not it pays to age 65 and so on and so forth. I will then write to the insurance company to ask them for their entire file, including the log notes, to see what the adjusters did. Did they do what they were supposed to do? We'll get the client's medical records. We'll start the lawsuit. And I will most likely send the client for a medical legal opinion, a disability opinion. What conditions do they have, and can they work or not? And then through I'll explain the litigation process. I try to move these cases very quickly, and the real principal reason for that is if someone's not working, they can't pay their bills, they can't pay their mortgage, they're in a dire financial situation, sometimes they have to borrow and go on ODSP and things like that, where they ought not to be, particularly if they paid into a disability plan. So we get the case moving quick. We schedule examinations for discovery fast, and that is where a lawyer for the disability carrier will question the client about their disability and their functioning, and I'll question the claims examiners to the process that they went through to deny the decision, to get what I would call important information out of them to show that the decision was not a justifiable one. And then we'll have what's called a mediation, a settlement conference or a mediation with an attempt to resolve the case. Resolve it by either having them reinstated on the claim or a lump sum settlement that they could take that money now. If it doesn't settle at mediation, we will move the case to a pretrial and ultimately a trial. But we're very cognizant of the fact that the clients in this situation cannot pay money up front, so we take our money at the end. We wait. And I take care of all the disbursements, that is the out-of-pocket expenses that we do to manage the claim until the case is done. And we've got a great success record. We've got an excellent success record in dealing with these cases.
Now, do you find, because it sounds like there's many steps, so how long do these types of claims take?
I find these cases are quicker than car accident cases. I've been settling long-term disability cases sometimes within a year, in the first year, or sometimes 2 years. Not like the auto cases, which could take 2 to 4 and longer. So they tend to resolve. It's really a contractual dispute, and do you meet the disability test or not? So we're pretty quick at how we get these cases moving. Yeah.
And I know from previous shows, when we talk about like automobile accidents, there's limitations. So
Yes.
in this type of claim, are there any sort of limitations to what they can get?
Well, the amount of money that the person receives will be governed by the contract. Usually it's a percentage, maybe 60% or 66% of their gross earnings, and still there may be a cap. It may be $3,000 a month or $4,000, depending on the type of policy that was available. It's never usually 100% of the income loss. So there is a cap there, and also there are deductions to long-term disability payments. Usually the policy will have a deduction for Canada Pension Plan disability benefits. There may well be an obligation under the policy to apply for those benefits, and then the disability carrier will deduct what the person gets from Canada Pension Plan disability. Okay. So there's no double taking there, so to speak.
Okay, but at least the person's getting their costs covered, right? So
well, I mean, they're getting what they're entitled to under the contract, and that's what we try to enforce. Yes.
Of course, and actually, I'm glad you brought up CPP, because when you were telling me before the show, I had just heard a little bit about it. I feel like a lot of people don't hear about it, so we're going to talk about that. But we have to take a short commercial break. So, folks, we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to ATN. I'm your host, Diamond Dillon, chatting in studio with Mr. Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Okay, so we've been talking about long-term disability, and what's interesting for hopefully most people here, because I didn't know this, is that CPP, there's actually, you can apply for disability through them. So
that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, this is the government plan, the Canada Pension Plan disability benefits, and there's really 2 criteria to be accepted for. This first is a monetary criteria, that is you've made enough contributions.
Yes.
So we look at the past 6 years before the disability arose. Did the person contribute for 4 of the 6 years? Or if they've contributed only for 3 out of the 6, have they contributed for a total of at least 25 years? So that's the financial component. Often, usually people have done that, but where the difficulty arises, and I see a lot of denials, is the disability test. You have to prove that the disability is severe and prolonged. Severe means it's going to prevent the person from doing any job, irrespective of their education, although there's some case law that says that might be relevant, but it's really, are they totally disabled from doing any job? And the next is that's the severe test. The next would be prolonged, meaning is it going to last well into the foreseeable future or result in death? This seems like a very onerous test, but people do in fact qualify for this benefit.
So the main difference between the two, from CPP disability and your private or employer disability plans, is what? Okay,
well, the private plans generally pay more. Because they're private insurance companies as opposed to taxpayers' money. The test on the long-term disability case for the first 2 years, and now it depends on the policy, I'm giving you sort of a general overview. For the first 2 years, it's whether or not you're substantially disabled from performing the essential tasks of your employment that you were in before you became disabled, before you stopped working. And after 2 years, it's whether or not you're totally disabled from performing any gainful occupation that you're suited to by way of education, training, or experience. Theoretically, the CPP doesn't look at that issue in terms of your suitability. They just, is there a job that you could do that's out there? So one could argue it's a tougher test. Alternatively, when people apply for Canada Pension Plan disability benefits, you filed your own documents, so people tend to put what's favorable to them. In the long-term disability case, they're going to ask for a lot more things.
Everything.
So, exactly.
So in terms of applications,
yes.
what should be going? It sounds like with the private,
yes.
essentially you're submitting everything, so really it's not up to you. A CPP is a little bit more, perhaps, on you.
Well, let me go over both. So for long-term disability applications, there's usually an employer statement. There'll be the applicant statement that basically sets out their basic information, what they can do, what they can't do, and a physician statement where there's a series of questions that are asked. On the Canada Pension Plan application, it's a little more, it's sometimes actually more detailed. They're going to go over sort of the employment history, what you can't do, what you can do. They'll go over child, do you have children, because that might affect the benefit as well. And there's a place for your doctor to fill out as well, the physician statement also.
And legal disability tests, I heard you mention that term a little bit before, so
yes.
maybe we can clarify that.
Sure.
What is that? Because it kind of sounds a little scary.
Okay, well, look. Let's talk about the long-term disability section, cases, for example. It's governed by a contract. And in that contract, which is the insurance policy, it's going to set out, this is what you have to meet in terms of a disability, how it affects you before we're going to pay you money. And that disability test changes after a period of time, usually 2 years. And on Canada Pension Plan, it's governed by statute. Your disability has to be severe and prolonged, and you have to have met the financial contributions to get the benefit.
And is there a time limit for these? Because I know with those other injury claims we've had, there is.
Sure.
So for these, is
Absolutely.
there?
Yeah. Again, long-term disability, they'll be in the contract. It'll set out when your application has to be submitted. Usually they have some sort of waiting period before you submit it. And if you submit it late, often cases are denied, and you got to apply to court for what's called relief of forfeiture. It's a legal term to say, I know I applied late, but there's no prejudice to the insurer. Please let me get the benefit anyway. There are limitation periods to sue as well, and generally by statute you have a 2-year limitation period from the denial or when the benefit was to be paid. But there are some exceptions to this as set out in contracts. So it's very important if people are denied, get to a lawyer really fast. Insurance companies often have this internal appeal process. Okay, they'll tell you, well, you're denied, but we're going to give you 90 days to give us more information. And I'm telling you from my experience, majority of those cases are still denied, and they give you a third chance, and it gets denied again and again. All in the meantime, while they're doing these internal appeals and denials, the ultimate limitation period to sue the insurance company is ticking away as well. So my advice, quite frankly, go to a lawyer after the first denial. Let somebody take that stress off you so that you don't have to deal with that. Because part of it, particularly people who have anxiety or depression in combination with physical injuries, just dealing with that insurance company, dealing with those phone calls, dealing with letters, it's sometimes too much.
Of course. And actually, let's talk about Kotak Law, because I know you have built a great reputation in the community for helping people out. We're going to take another little break. So we'll be right back after the short commercial break. Welcome back to ATN. I'm your host, Amin Dillon. Of course, I'm in studio chatting with Mr. Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Okay, Kotak Law. We know all about you, but one of the things I know Kotak Law has really done is made sure that you're in the community, serving the community, and most importantly, no obligation, which we're going to get to in a moment. So first of all, take us back. Kotak Law, 2 locations now, right?
That's correct. We have a location in Mississauga and in Brampton as well.
Excellent. And most importantly as well, those 2 areas, big diversity there. So I hear we've got lots of languages that people can come down and get represented in, right?
Absolutely. You know, we're a multi-ethnic firm. We have lawyers who speak different languages, as well as law clerks and paralegals who do as well. We help everybody.
Which helps.
Yeah, we help everybody.
Yeah, and Punjabi, Hindi,
Absolutely.
most importantly, right? So,
Yes.
which is nice because I was mentioning during the commercial break, I find with any sort of injury, you're dealing with, first of all, the injury itself, right? The pain, and it changes your lifestyle, it changes your family's life. But then when you're not able to get payment or any other benefits, it really makes it a scary situation because you're thinking, not only am I going through this, but now I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay for my house. And so I think there's a lot of misinformation, and maybe even a little bit, most people get fearful of dealing with a lawyer, right? Because lawyers are typically like scary kind of an industry. But with Kotak Law, people don't have to start shelling out money. You can come in and just have a simple chat with you just to find out if they've got a good claim for no obligation.
That's correct. Look, we don't take money up front. The consultations are free. We don't pressure people to sign with us. We meet, take as long as the meeting is necessary, give them all the information they need to make a decision. Many people will sign up with us right away. Some people want to think about it, and that's totally okay. We don't pressure people. You come in, you have a cup of coffee with us, and you have a chat about your case, and when we give the options as to what to do, particularly with these disability cases where people are they're sort of frantic. They're fed up of dealing with the insurance company. They're stressed, and we kind of put them at ease that we'll take care of all these issues.
Which is what you want in a lawyer, right? Just to take care of it.
Exactly.
And so apart from helping people win their cases, we've been spending some time together because I've been able to come down and check out Brampton Beast.
Yes, yes. Well, I have a box suite at the Powerade Center with the Brampton Beast, the ECHL team, and I do a lot of community work using that box and using that venue. Each year I bring 1,000 troops, veterans and cadets to a game. We call it Kotak Law Military Appreciation Day. We've extended that, in fact, and now usually for all the Sunday games, we bring troops and their families to the game, and we call that program Kotak's Heroes. So I do a lot, to give back. I think it's important, if you're having success as an individual or a corporation, give back to the community. It's good karma for everybody.
So if people make their way down to a Brampton Beast game, they can see you at your box, they can wave, eh?
Yep.
Come see you. It's the best place to be, is in that Kotak Law box there.
Yes, it is.
And of course, I love that you're supporting Canada's favorite pastime, hockey.
Yes.
That means you're a big hockey fan, right?
I am a big hockey fan.
And a player too? Are we going to see you maybe?
I did a few years ago. A little bit old for that now.
That's good to know. And of course, for any information about what you do or just to even book an appointment, where should they go?
All right. Go to our website. I would say first, kotaklaw.com. Look at what we do, look at our testimonials, look at our blogs, look at the information there, and then certainly give us a call, 905-755-8900. We have a toll-free number as well. But definitely the first step, go to our website and see the wonderful work that we do.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you.
And chatting with us. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. You've been watching ATN, and I'm your host, Amin Dillon, signing off at the ATN Studios.